Hey everybody, have you ever been driving down the street and you get to about 30-40 miles an hour and you start feeling your steering wheel do a little bit of this, like you're sitting on the washing machine? Well, that could be a serious problem, and you don't want to get into a wreck because steering is everything. So I'm going to say that normally when you feel this shaking in your steering wheel, when you're driving with your foot on the gas, that's going to be the tie rod. And a tie rod is what's connected to the steering rack, which connects to the steering wheel. So when you turn the wheel, it turns all the components to make the actual outside wheel spin. Now, if you lose control of that and you're driving straight and one wheel loses control and goes to the side, what do you think is going to happen? Well, it's Disturbing Creations. We don't want that to happen to you. So I'm going to show you how to test for it and fix it super easy. So I'm going to show you a trick that I learned back in the day from an older guy that was mentoring me when I was learning about mechanics. So they said to jack the wheel up and leave the lug nuts on tight, and then you can kind of shake the tire and see what's going on. So if we shake the tire this way and it moves, you see how it's making that little bit of move? I don't know if you can see it, but try to hear it. So it's going tick, 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 tick. It's barely moving, but it's moving about 1/4 of an inch this way. Now, normally that means that the tie rod is bad. That could be the inner or the outer. So we have to go inside, take the tire off and see. And if you go this way, normally that means that the ball joint is bad. So I don't feel any this way, but a lot of play this way. And that's normally what the shaking is. Like I said, in the car, when you're driving and it shakes, it's the tie rod. When you slow down and hit the brake and it shakes, well, that's not the suspension at all, that's the brakes. And we'll have another video on that just to help those people out. Now let's get this tire off, get down in there. So now that I got in here a little bit, I am shaking this with my leg and putting my hand on the different parts. And I'm noticing that the tie rod and ball joint are right next to each other facing up. So on this one, the shake test isn't gonna work because this way was fine, but this way was not. When I did it this way and I touched and I held the tie rod was good. But if you put your hand, if you cup around the component and move this back and forth, you can feel it shaking in and out. Now I'm gonna pull the camera down here so you can see what part I'm actually talking about. And we're gonna go ahead and change this arm and this ball joint. Now, if you were sitting at the outside of the car, this is what it would look like. And let's go ahead and look at some of these components in here. So straight down, this would be your, if I could get the focus, this would be your tie rod right here. This one that goes into your steering rack here and usually has a boot on it. And then on this side over here, you see another arm coming down, down, down into this nasty looking one, and that is the ball joint. And it is rocking up and down here. So it's locked on right here, right? So it's not gonna go anywhere. But as this little ball and socket in here get old, it starts to wear out and it makes more space. And now on this side, I can feel it moving just a little bit up and down, but on this side, solid, you know? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some PB Blast on here and let it set for about 15 minutes. And that's just some penetrator oil to get past all this rust to make it easier for y'all. And then we're gonna try to go ahead and pop this out. Now, if you're gonna take this part out completely, you can take this nut off and just hammer this straight down because you're not gonna, you're replacing this part. If you're gonna put this part back on because you need to change the spindle or something it's hooked to, you never hammer this part. You always wanna hit it on the side right here where it's flat, and that'll knock it loose and pull it down. If all else fails, we'll get out the little pickle fork and slam it in there. But if you don't know what a pickle fork is, look in our tools playlist under pickle fork and we'll show you how to use one. So at this point, I just want to say that I was a little amazed that it wasn't the tie rod, because normally the test works really well. But in this compressor that I have, the tie rod's here and the ball joint's right next to it. So how would you know? That's why I'm saying always do your due diligence. You know, you do these tests to get you in the right area, but it might not be exact because you're not even looking behind the tire yet. But normally, I would say more than 80%, it's usually the one that you're looking for. Shake to the side, tie rod, up and down, ball joint. But this has no ball joint on the top, only on the bottom. So it's a completely different setup. So I'm glad that I did the shake test again, just holding caliper and rotor, and then put my hand on each component so you can see which one feels like it's moving. So let's get right in there and pop that ball joint out and get a new one on so we can get this car back on the road safely. Okay, so I had this car once before, and it was hydroplaned, and I slid off the side of the road and wrecked. And then we had some engine problems, but I saved all the parts. So this is actually flipped upside down so you could see it. So this is the piece that's connected to the car right here, with the bushing inside. And this is a 21 on this side and a 21 on this side. So you're gonna have to get like a socket and a wrench and take it off. And that's how we're gonna do it over here on the vehicle as well. And then we're going to have to also get this off, this castle nut, which is a 21 as well. So at least you got lucky on the 21, 21, and 21. And this is the lower ball joint, upper ball joint, and the tie rod would go right here. Now, I don't really like this because they're all in a row. It's hard to tell which one is loose and which one is messed up. But luckily we had a part. Now, when I do unscrew this, I am going to test this to make sure it still has life in it. But since this is the daily driver that I'm using right now, I'm going to use all these used parts up first. This car has 240,000 original miles on it, on the original engine. And I just like it because it has a hatchback. It's the only Mercedes with a hatchback. So I'm basically using it as my everyday daily and truck to put the seats down and be able to get stuff. So if I have a part and it works, I'm going to use it, but I don't recommend you just getting a used part from someone else you don't know. This came off of my car. I know how to test it. I'm going to use it. If I get a year or two out of it, that's great, because I don't know how long the car is going to last. And I don't want to go buy a $60, $70 part and then something happens to the vehicle. I just need it to get back and forth to school and to pick up parts for customers. So because of the location right here, I can only get a 21 in there. I can't get a gun or anything because the strut's in here. I'd have to take all that off to get the gun. It doesn't make any sense. This is just an easy nut. It's not really too hard to get off. So what I'll do is I'll lock the box end on and make sure that it's flush. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit it with the sledgehammer a couple of times just to break it loose and then take it off with my fingers. You have to make sure that you're using the boxed end and you have to hold it very firm. If it goes like this or moves around, you're gonna strip this nut and then you're gonna have to take the whole thing, you're gonna have to take all this apart. Don't want to do that. So just go easy, tap it a couple of times, see if it breaks loose. Now, it was being a little bit of a booger trying to get off. So what I did was I put some heat and I put it on the nut right here. And what that'll do is you just want to get it hot enough to expand the metal so you can get it off. And I heated it up for about a good 20 seconds and that seemed to work. So then I put this back on here and I held it with my hand and then I just started tapping it easy. Tap, 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 tap. And it started to come off. Now you gotta watch because right here, is where we're getting off. But right here is another ball joint. So you need to come straight down at an angle to not hit this ball joint, because you don't want to ruin that rubber, because then you'll be fixing that. You have to come straight down at an angle and hit this straight down. It doesn't matter if you get this part, because this part's going in the garbage. So you want to hit this side and go down, not across. If you go across this way, pointed this way, then you're going to hit this ball joint as well. You don't want to do that. So always watch your flame. And I'm just using, you know, one of these little propanes, or you can use MAP gas. You just get one of these little handles. You can get a nice new one that has a little trigger on it, so when you open it, it just triggers. I'm using this, and then I always use one of these to keep the flame away from me, so I don't, you know, flame my hand or something happen. Again, you put it on there for 20 seconds, and then just immediately get on it. That will help you to not strip out that bolt. Whew, man, that was a lot of work. So I actually had to get the pickle fork and stick it in between right here, against the metal here. And I had to hammer it in a couple of times because the inside was spinning with the nut. So I would just give it a tap and then tap it loose, give it a tap, tap it loose, give it a tap. It took a minute. It probably took like 15 minutes because you're only moving it a little bit at a time. But this is under extreme circumstances. This was probably the original. This car's a 2003, so it's 20 years old. And man, 230,000 miles on a ball joint, that's pretty good. I'm very excited. Mercedes really makes good stuff. So now we got the piece out. I'm going to show you what I'm doing to get the top piece out, and then we're going to load the new one in. So you see we got this piece out on the bottom, and look how loose it is. It's just loosey-goosey all over the place. As I was driving, it was just doing that. I could feel it in the steering wheel. I thought it was the tie rod, but apparently it's the ball joint. So now I'm taking the nut off of this side, 21 and 21. I'm going to unscrew it, and then we're going to screw the new one up in. So let me show you the difference. So you see this is the exact same part. This is actually OEM off my old car. Or this is actually OEM off my old car, and this is the new one. And you see this thing is just trash. It looks like it's ready to fall out. And this one, here, I'll show you. It doesn't even move. Like, it moves the whole part. Like, I can't even physically push it down, but this one I can just do with one finger. So you could feel that wobble, wobble, wobble. And if this ball pops out of here eventually, then this whole arm is going to be dragging on the ground. If that arm falls down and hits the ground, goes in one of your spokes of your wheel, that's aluminum. This is steel. What do you think's going to happen when you stick a metal rod in an aluminum rim? That thing's going to lock up and shatter and explode into a million pieces, or the arm's going to fall straight down and bump you up into the air and rip off. That rips off and it dents your frame. Then what are you going to do? That locks into a piece of the frame. You have to cut that out and weld that piece of frame up. Please do your due diligence, maintenance, everything you need to do so you don't make problems down the line. So let's get this newer, stiffer one in, take it for a test drive, and see how she feels. All right, so I saved the hardware from the old one just in case I messed up, you know, when you're taking it off. But everything looks good, so it doesn't matter which hardware we use. I'm just gonna put it back in the same way. So we're gonna start on this side and push this up in. And there it goes, all in, everything is good, tightened up, got it all in, she looks great. And now we're gonna give it the wobble test and take it for a test drive.